Jamie Raskin just unleashed one of the most blistering takedowns you'll ever hear in a congressional hearing, directly accusing FBI Director Patel of orchestrating a cover-up involving the Trump-Epstein connection. This wasn't just political fire, it was a scathing moral intervention, exposing the FBI's betrayal of its duty to protect truth and justice. Raskin's sharp words laid bare how power is being shielded while justice is sacrificed. The stakes couldn't be higher. If you want to stay informed and hold power accountable, don't forget to subscribe, share, and support the truth. This fight isn't over. History is watching.
In your book, you describe your literary alter ego, Cash the Knight, as a wacky, easily bored wizard carrying out King Donald's vengeance by driving his enemies out of the kingdom. In the books, King Donald is besieged by the evil Hillary Queentown, but saved in the end by Cash. Then Cash goes on to catch mules who are stealing the 2020 election for the great King Donald from Sleepy Joe. And then in the third book, Cash takes down the Dragon of the Jalapenos, nicknamed the DOJ. Your supporters had hoped that you would graduate from imagining yourself a romantic fairy tale knight to actually running America's premier federal law enforcement agency. Alas, just as we've learned how dangerous it is to put a science-denying anti-vaxxer in charge of our public health, we've learned how dangerous it is to name as director of the FBI a man who thinks of himself as a fairy tale knight who keeps a fire-breathing dragon named DOJ at home to forcibly drive villains out of the kingdom. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated while his killer was still on the loose, you decided you didn't need to be at FBI headquarters in Washington to work with your team while the chaotic manhunt unfolded. You spent your evening dining in a swanky Midtown Manhattan restaurant and tweeting out false information that the subject of the shooting was in custody, a statement you had to retract 1 hour later. Your performance was so disturbing that even the MAGA base was alarmed. Culture warrior Christopher Rufo, who just a few months ago sat in your chair as a Republican witness, observed that you performed terribly, and he called for your ouster. The FBI might be able to survive your delusions of grandeur and the explosively volatile temper that was on display yesterday in the Senate, but the intractable problem is that you are running the FBI not as a law enforcement agency charged with keeping the American people safe, but as a political enforcement agency working directly for the president's vengeance campaign. 7 months in, it's impossible to overstate the destruction, chaos, and demoralization you've brought to the FBI and its workforce and the resulting danger your actions have caused to our country. You've been systematically purging the FBI of its most experienced and qualified agents, division leaders, and experts in counterterror, counterintelligence, and cybersecurity, precisely the people who have the expertise you lack and which the FBI and the country need. They've been expelled from the ranks of the Bureau simply because they did their duty investigating crimes, including those committed by the mob that attacked the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and beat the hell out of more than 140 police officers, or simply because you suspected them of being insufficiently loyal to Donald Trump. You illegally sacked Brian Driscoll, the former acting director of the Bureau and a decorated counterterrorism expert who worked at the FBI for nearly 20 years. According to Driscoll, you told him your own job, quote, depended on the removal of agents who worked on the cases against the president, regardless of whether the agents chose to work on those cases or not. You added, quote, the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it. You forced out the leader of the Salt Lake City field office, Mehtab Saeed, just weeks before Charlie Kirk's assassination, depriving the FBI of an experienced counterterrorism expert described by her colleagues as absolutely the best and legendary. She would have led the FBI's manhunt had she not been fired. When Trump decided that rounding up immigrants with no criminal records was more important than preventing crimes like human trafficking of women and girls, drug dealing, terrorism, and fraud, you ordered the 25 largest field offices to divert thousands of agents away from chasing down violent criminals, sex traffickers, fraudsters, and scammers to carry out this immigration crackdown. Director Patel, you treated the men and women at FBI with disrespect and paranoia. You've assembled a roving band of freelancing henchmen within your office and charged them with conducting unauthorized investigations, targeting and harassing career FBI employees. Amazingly, you forced senior leadership to repeatedly take polygraph tests to prove their political loyalty and pushed out leaders who refused these demeaning exercises. And now we're seeing one very clear reason why you want to build a political FBI: the Epstein files. You want an FBI blindly loyal to Trump and to you as his enforcer so you can continue your cover-up of a massive international sex trafficking ring with more than 1,000 victims, betraying all of the survivors of the sexual violence. Before you got in this job, you called for full release of the Epstein files, telling podcaster Benny Johnson that the only reason the list was not released by DOJ and FBI was, quote, because of who's on that list. Upon your confirmation, you promised that, quote, there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned, and anyone from the prior or current bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. This spring, you ordered hundreds of agents to pore over all the Epstein files, but not to look for more clues about the money network or the network of human traffickers. You pulled these agents from their regular counterterrorism or drug trafficking duties to work around the clock, some of them sleeping at their desks, to conduct a frantic search to make sure Donald Trump's name and image were flagged and redacted wherever they appeared, whether an email, a text, a letter, an interview, a photograph, or a video. In May, Attorney General Bondi reportedly told Trump that his name had indeed appeared multiple times throughout the Epstein files. And not long thereafter, in July, you and the Attorney General released a memo claiming that, quote, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. In a few short months, how did you go from being a crusader for accountability and transparency for the Epstein files to being a part of the conspiracy and cover-up? The answer is simple. You said it yourself, because of who's on that list. Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein over the years is well documented. A week ago, the Oversight Committee released Trump's disturbing birthday book, Note to Epstein, written over a drawing of a woman's naked body referring to a, quote, wonderful secret. The Oversight Committee obtained the note from the Epstein estate, not from the FBI, raising questions again of whether the FBI has been withholding documents. While you're unleashing the FBI to cater to Trump's desire to shut down the Epstein inquiry, the first 9 months of the Trump presidency have seen a spate of political violence and domestic terror events. We saw deadly attacks on political figures on both the left and the right. The brutal assassination of Minnesota Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the attempted murder of Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, who miraculously survived a combined 17 gunshots. We saw an arsonist set Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence on fire. And of course, last week, we saw the horrific, cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah that has shaken the nation. 1 minute after Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck, a 16-year-old shooter in Evergreen, Colorado, radicalized by white supremacist ideology online, opened fire and critically wounded 2 other students at Evergreen High School. We've seen lethal anti-Semitic violence, including the murder of 2 young Israeli embassy staffers just blocks from the Capitol, and then in the attack on a gathering of Jewish people in support of hostages held in Gaza in Boulder in June. We've seen continued mass shootings at schools, like the domestic terror incident at a Catholic school in Minneapolis last month, which killed 2 children and wounded 18 others. And in August, a man fired more than 500 bullets at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, killing a police officer who was a Marine veteran and a father. People like Melissa Hortman and Charlie Kirk should be able to participate in politics as elected officials or active citizens without being shot down in cold blood in the United States of America. People should also be able to go to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, to work, to the mall, and to church without being shot down in explosions of gun violence. The important position at the FBI requires a leader who puts public safety and national security and the rule of law first. I'm afraid, Director Patel, you've given us reason to believe you've used the powers of the FBI to serve Donald Trump and his agenda of partisan retribution. You've broken your promise not to do that. You've betrayed Jeffrey Epstein's victims and survivors. You've turned your back on the career law enforcement officers of the FBI, and as a result, you've left all of us less less safe than before.
What we witnessed from Jamie Raskin wasn't just a political clash between a Democrat and a Trump appointee. This was a moral and constitutional intervention. Raskin's statement was not only lengthy and deliberate, it was profound, layered, and meticulously constructed. He wasn't simply calling out Patel's incompetence. He was revealing a far darker truth: the transformation of a state apparatus into a tool of personal loyalty and cover-up. This is exactly how democracies begin to unravel, not in one dramatic event, but in the consistent small betrayals of institutional integrity. Let's break down Raskin's argument. At its core, Raskin draws a direct historical line from J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI's first director, to Patel. Hoover built a powerful empire based on fear, targeting civil rights leaders, silencing dissent, and gathering dossiers on anyone who dared challenge the power structure. Patel, Raskin suggests, is Hoover's 21st century reincarnation. But there's a crucial difference. Hoover demanded loyalty to himself, whereas Patel is demanding loyalty to a political figure, Donald Trump. This isn't a matter of ideology, it's a matter of allegiance. It's about turning a respected law enforcement agency into a personal shield for a political figure, bending justice to serve power instead of truth. Raskin's alarm isn't just rooted in anger, it's rooted in genuine concern. He's sounding the warning that under Patel's FBI, we're witnessing more than mismanagement. We're witnessing the corrosion of justice from within. The threat is far deeper than simply ineptitude or poor leadership. This is the slow, insidious transformation of a respected institution into a political tool, where power is protected at the expense of truth. A key moment in Raskin's speech came when he referenced the Epstein files. What Raskin exposed wasn't merely scandal, it was a clear motive. At one point, Patel had called for full transparency regarding Epstein's network, vowing there would be no cover-up under his leadership. Yet, once in power, Patel allegedly ordered FBI agents to scrub Trump's name from those same files. Think about what this means. The FBI's top priorities, counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and organized crime, were sidelined so that agents could focus on cleaning up the image of a former president. This isn't just political interference, it's obstruction under the guise of patriotism. Even more telling is the detail about Trump's alleged birthday note to Epstein, which wasn't uncovered by the FBI, but by congressional investigators. If true, it suggests that Patel's FBI wasn't simply failing to act, it was actively concealing the truth. The FBI's responsibility is to protect the truth, not to shield the powerful from accountability. When these two imperatives diverge, democracy's alarm bells should ring loudly. Raskin's speech also captured the painful irony of Trump's law and order rhetoric. Under Patel's leadership, law and order didn't mean justice for all, it meant selective enforcement. Justice for some, immunity for others. Patel reportedly fired counterterrorism experts, forced out veteran investigators, and replaced them with political loyalists. He even pressured senior officials to take polygraph tests to prove their political allegiance. This wasn't oversight, it was intimidation. This is the kind of behavior that doesn't just undermine democracy, it breeds authoritarianism. Authoritarian regimes aren't built through violent coups or military takeovers. They're constructed slowly through a purge of those who refuse to bend the knee to the leader. Raskin also linked this to the real-world consequences of such corruption. As Patel's FBI distracted itself with political maneuvering, America faced a rising tide of political violence and an erosion of public trust. The FBI's paralysis under Patel's leadership meant that while the country was grappling with domestic terrorism, political violence, and widespread fear, the country's most powerful law enforcement agency was more focused on protecting the reputation of a former president than on addressing the urgent crises unfolding in real time. The cost of corruption isn't just the decay of institutions, it's human lives. As Raskin pointed out, while the FBI was busy erasing Trump's name from Epstein's files, everyday citizens were being gunned down in a wave of domestic terror. Elected officials, school children, and ordinary people were dying because the nation's chief law enforcement agency was distracted by politics. This is the hidden price of institutional corruption. It's not just the loss of justice, it's the loss of lives. Raskin's warning went beyond just exposing Patel. He also spoke to the dangerous precedent being set. Once a president learns that the FBI can be weaponized as his personal legal shield, that precedent doesn't disappear. Every future president will inherit the power to turn the FBI into a tool for personal protection. This is the cycle that must be broken. Raskin's message was clear. It's not just about exposing a cover-up. It's about preserving the very concept of justice in America. This is why Raskin's words are so critical. When he says, "You've left all of us less safe than before, it's not rhetorical flourish. It's a hard truth. When truth becomes negotiable, when loyalty replaces integrity, and when the powerful are shielded while the powerless are punished, the entire system becomes unstable. The FBI, once feared for its overreach, is now being hollowed out from within. Raskin's speech serves as a powerful reminder that it's not just government corruption that threatens democracy, it's the slow, insidious erosion of those institutions that are meant to protect the truth. The responsibility for defending democracy doesn't lie solely in the halls of Congress or in the headlines. It rests with us, the people. Democracy is defended by those who refuse to look away when corruption takes root. The fight for accountability, transparency, and justice doesn't end with a viral video or a headline. It continues with relentless pressure, vigilance, and a commitment to never normalizing corruption disguised as patriotism. If there's one thing we should take away from Raskin's words, it's that truth doesn't survive by accident. It survives because we, the people, defend it loudly, persistently, and together. If you believe that truth matters, if you believe that accountability matters, and if you believe that no one, not even a president, is above the law, then it's time to act. Subscribe, share, and stay engaged. The fight for justice is not just about the headlines, it's about the future of our democracy, and history is watching to see who stood up when it mattered most.